Hello, welcome back to Drippy Dress's channel. In today's video, I will be talking about the evolution of Pinocchio. Most of you probably haven't read the book or seen most of the movies. That's okay because I will be providing a brief overview of each before talking about how they've aged and my personal opinion of each one. So to start off with, Carlo Collodi's The Adventures of Pinocchio opens up with the introduction of Master Antonio, who needs to carve himself a new table leg. He picks up a piece of wood and then he starts chipping at it. Each time he chips at it, the piece of wood screams. Just then, Master Antonio's friend Geppetto stops by, and he asks his friend for a piece of wood so that he can carve himself a puppet. Master Antonio gives this strange piece of wood to Geppetto, who takes it back to his wood shop. As he is carving the puppet starts kicking at him. Once he has finished carving the puppet, he names it Pinocchio. As soon as he is named, Pinocchio runs off into the world without a conscience, where he gets himself in and out of trouble. Eventually, Pinocchio gets himself injured, and the Blue Fairy decides to take care of him. Once Pinocchio's injuries start healing, the Blue Fairy summons Geppetto, and Pinocchio, eager to see his father, runs off to meet him halfway. Along the way, Pinocchio gets tricked by a fox and a stray cat into giving them all his money. As punishment for his foolish behavior, Pinocchio is thrown in prison. Almost as soon as he gets out of prison, he witnesses his father get swallowed by a giant whale. Pinocchio returns to his home country, where he befriends Lampwick, who encourages him to take the coach to Pleasure Island. Once there, he makes an ass out of himself by accepting gifts from strangers and then gets sold into slavery. He eventually escapes and turns back into a puppet and then gets swallowed by the same whale that swallowed his father. The two of them escape and return to their home country, and Pinocchio, despite being able to go and live with the Blue Fairy, decides to spend the rest of Geppetto's days taking care of him. As a result of proving himself brave, truthful, and unselfish, Pinocchio turns into a real boy. I know what most of you are thinking, yeah, that sounds like kind of a weird book. It was probably really good for that time period, but it hasn't aged well, so I'd give it a something out of 10. I would say that the book was a 10 out of 10 when it first came out, but now it's a 2 out of 10. The reason that this book worked so well when it first came out was because it came at a time where people believed that if you were being logical, that was it, and if you were being emotional, that was it. There was never anything in between. And then movies started coming out, and they started convincing people otherwise. Realistically, as soon as Hollywood started making movies, they should have made it their top priority to do a film adaptation of Pinocchio, but they didn't. In 1937, Walt Disney finally released Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, which people liked, but they thought it was a little awkward because of the way Dopey looked and because he had a crush on Snow White. 3 years later, Pinocchio was released, and it convinced people that you shouldn't need some sort of logical explanation as to whether or not someone is a pedophile. You should just be able to tell if someone's a pedophile. The movie continued to do this until its re-releases in 1968 and 1971. A big mistake that people made with this movie is that they focused way too much on liking it when they should have focused on appreciating it. I don't like the 1940 version of Pinocchio. I give it a 4 out of 10, but I appreciate it. And I'll appreciate it more and more as I get older, but I don't think I'm ever gonna like it. The same goes for Snow White. I'd give it a 9 out of 10 when it first came out, and a 4.9 out of 10 now. In 2019, Apple TV launched a series called The Morning Show, which is a fictional series about a broadcasting company called The Morning Show. In the first episode, Mitch Kessler, played by Steve Carell, gets fired for sexual misconduct. In the second episode, a different character does something that might make you think they're a sexual predator and then turns out not to be. The lesson of the show is that if somebody isn't a sexual predator, better, then they shouldn't present themselves as one. Does that mean that all people who've done something like that should go to jail or prison? That depends on the person and whether or not the victim feels that they've been abused. A month after the morning show launched, Italy did their own live-action Pinocchio, which served as a great way to get kids in Europe to watch Disney's live-action Pinocchio. I still haven't seen the Italian version of Pinocchio or season 3 of the morning show. If I had to guess what I would rate either of them, I would say 10 out of 10 for both, but Disney's live-action version is better. Obviously, what's in Italy's Pinocchio and what's in the morning show aren't pleasant, but I'm not judging either of them based on what's in the projects. I'm judging them based on how they get their messages across. Seasons 1 and 2 of the morning show are easily 10 out of 10 projects, and I would recommend them to anybody. Disney's live-action Pinocchio is not only the best Disney movie ever made, but one of the best movies as well. I can't picture any toxic reality shows or any stupid humor changing the way that this movie gets its message across. This is easily a 10 out of 10 movie, and I hope that as soon as you guys exit this page, you go and watch it if you haven't already. Well, thank you all so much for watching. Thank you for hitting that like and subscribe button. Thank you for leaving comments in the comment section below. I cannot wait to read what you guys have to say about these projects.